so much.
I thank Father Zvonimir
That he gave me trust that I'm able to say something interesting, even though it is very hard to be interesting after wonderful people behind me. I greet all of the youth that is here, and I greet all those who feel young in their hearts. I'm glad to be able to be a drop of this waterfall of graces that is being poured over Medjugorje. Regardless that I'm 30 kilometers in Metković, behind the border, I'm present in Medjugorje ever since the very beginning of the apparitions. This is my place, this is where I feel the best. I graduated in Zagreb 2 days after the apparition started on the Sacred Heart of Jesus on 26th of June 1981. And this all was shadowed because I found out about the apparitions straight away. After the promotion, after I returned here to the Apparition Hill with my mom's sister, then I got to know Vicka and Vicka's mom, and Vicka led me one day into the sacristy during the apparition. This was unique experience in my life, and there was no such experience as that. I never read a single book written by different doctors, scientists, those who were investigating Medjugorje, whether the apparitions happened or didn't happen in Medjugorje. Then, along with those children who were looking at the Blessed Virgin Mary, who spoke with her, I was looking at her, and she was here. And I thank Vicka because she probably forgot me from that point on. My task is to say something from my life experience regarding fears, regarding depressions. That is the most frequent diagnosis in the world. Why this is the most frequent diagnosis in the world? Because in the background of all of the fears, there is a diagnosis of being alone. Solitude, loneliness is the most frequent diagnosis in the world today. When we look at how many of us are here today, we can say that none of us in this very moment is alone. Because just look at how many of us are here. But the doctor discerns the term of being alone from being in solitude. When I'm alone, this is my personal feeling. I can be surrounded with thousands of people and I can be alone. And when I'm alone in the room, I don't necessarily have to be alone in solitude. The problem of being alone it is the problem because the brain in the same moment registrates solitude and pain, therefore feeling of being alone really hurts. What is hidden behind that feeling of being alone? Feeling that solitude. What is hidden is my idea that I'm not loved, that I'm not respected, that they don't give me enough attention, that they don't respect me. People that I'm referred to in my daily life. As much as it is needed for me, as much as I want to be loved and respected. This is one big trap It is something that we for generations and generations have been passing on to the other. Something that ever since conception in our genes. It is big to know that it is possible to be healed from the idea of being alone. Great scientists say is that we are not determined by genes, we're not determined by the early upbringing that psychologists wish to talk about, but we are determined by what we produce from our genes, what we produce in what we received in our families during our education. Here in Medjugorje, we pray a lot for the healing of wounds. Ever since conception up to these days, these wounds have always been related to the fact that somebody very important to me was not behaving the way I wanted that person to behave. Healing is to bring into our consciousness that all of the people that we have encountered in our lives, that all of the people that we spend more or less time with, all these people gave us what they had. That is why when parents say to me, I made mistake, nobody ever made mistake. Everyone in every moment gave what they had, yet that doesn't mean that our entire life should not be invested, that we shouldn't put any effort of having even more. Of course, not material, but our own mental capacity of being in a better environment to those around us. My wife is present here. My son, those who criticize the most, and if I gave the microphone, they would tell you that not in every moment, and even in a great number of the moments, and in a great number of hours and days, that I wasn't the best environment for them. I was too demanding, I was too arrogant, and I wanted that I and everyone who is my family, that we become better than the others. When I was doing that, I didn't see anything bad because I thought it is good to be developed. But that idea of being better and that my family needs to be better is actually the idea that for decades I developed anxiety. Because always there was a fear whether I achieved that of being better than the others. Of course not, because that is impossible to be achieved. Regardless of how much I was faithful, regardless of how much I was believing ever since I was little, my faith was completely immature. Our Lady was always very, very important in my life. And I got to know Jesus and I loved him only in the mature age. I was afraid of him. I did not understand that love equals love of his mother. I thought that he is a critician. This is what strengthened my anxiety even more and my fears, because I didn't have proof of being good before people. And the question was what Jesus thought, how he felt about me. Very often I was confessing and I was repeating the same sins. And then I said, of course, maybe confession wouldn't even exist if it was possible to be holy. However, all of that produced some sort of great displeasure and some sort of great anxiety within me as a young person. And the greatest fear was whether I would lose someone who is my loved one. And we are a small family, and always after each Holy Mass, I would go around saints and statues of saints, and I would pray, and sometimes priests who knew me, because for many years I was going to the Church of St. Francis in Chaplin, and then late Father Vlatko Kozina would say, "You're so boring when you go from statue to statue. You are so boring, and trust me, you are boring to God. And what is it that you are praying?" And always I prayed that something bad wouldn't happen to me and that I wouldn't lose a dear person in my life. But I wasn't able to understand that everything bad I was really producing for myself. And when I was 35, I lost my father. I thought it was the end of the world and that I would never be able to be happy again. And then, as we know that in pain, either we fall apart or we grow bigger, thank God, with His help, I grew. And I can say that ever since then, I was happier as a person than when I had my father alive and when I prayed that he won't die. Because I came closer to Jesus, and exactly in that pain and in that suffering of my father, I started to love Jesus, and I was no longer afraid of him. I was able to discover where is the point of my inner peace, because when we go to certain pilgrimages, when we go for the psychotherapy, we seek for peace. And it is always evident for us, whether here in my chest there's a butterfly or there's an elephant, we understand that it is good or it is not good for us. But we don't understand fully that this is something that we are creating ourselves. I understand, I agree that in our life paths there might be various and different temptations. I agree that we might be facing challenges that sometimes we think is it impossible to prevail these challenges, and it seems to us that this is always happening less in someone else's life than in my own life. However, this happens as much as we can endure and as much as we can take, and very often at these challenges it is us who are building additional our own feeling. So everything was destroyed, so nothing makes purpose, so it is impossible to be happy. Very often my clients in all of the generations, when they sit with me, it seems that everyone is happy because I'm not happy. I don't know when I woke up and I was happy. I would say that I never wake up happy. And there was not enough dream, and as much as I know that I would be dizzy, I go to sleep late. And I'm not happy when I open my eyes. And when I come to myself, then I plan how to make myself happy in that day. And then I would be less or more happy. As much as I produce, and if I create, if I look for guilty ones around me that most of the world is looking, then I no longer have a heritage for the happiness. And then those who are living with me would want to make me happy, then I'm not receiving any happiness as a heritage. I prepare youth for the marriage, and the first sentence is always, you sit among someone that you love, that you have chosen among millions of women and men. You have chosen this person to spend a life with. What is the intention? If it is intention that this person makes you happy, then you're in the wrong way, then you're still not mature for entering the marriage. If it is your intention to make happy someone that you have chosen among the millions of others, then you're on the right path. This is very challenging and requires permanent development of our mental capacity. And that is something that is valid when we enter the marriage. This is something that can be applicable for every human relationship. The question is always, how come that I make better day with people that God sent in my life today, and that God helped me to approach them in their lives, waiting for them to receive gratitude, to receive respect, to receive love. We would be very anxious because they never clearly know in which way we await for these parameters to be fulfilled. And very often they don't have their capacity that they are doing, because I was the first one who forgot that not that all people are me. And my husband would say, what would this world look like if all people would be you? There was nothing bad, there were no bad intentions, as much as I believe that I'm really right, that I'm on God's path. And all of the people who think differently from me, they're not so good. They want to really do bad things for me. And with that type of opinion, the fear needs to develop when they are going to recognize me, when they are going to give me love and respect. And that is why this world is being suffocated in the anxiety. Depression is something that is just diagnosed, self-diagnosed on internet, and I would dare to say that even my colleagues sometimes diagnose it too fast, because we have two terms. We have depression and anxiety. The anxiety is when I don't feel that I'm like a butterfly in this world, but I feel that I have burdens in my soul, and I do my daily job along with depression. I become more attached to these burdens, and this is what distracts me in my daily life, and I do not perform my daily works, not privately, not in the professional life. But the most sold medicines in the world are antidepressives and the medications for anxiety. Those are the fears that are supposed to eliminate fear and fix our mood. And when brain receives the chemistry and accepts it, it is like... And I don't say that people sometimes need maybe crutches, maybe they break a leg, they need crutches, but not to carry that all of their lives. But they would walk safely in their lives. This is how the purpose of medication. They're just temporary crutches, but along with them, we also need psychotherapy, that we bring ourselves to, and that we see where do we make these burdens in our own lives, because the other cannot burden us that much. I was watching for these beautiful events at TV Laudato. And I was present here more or less, and I was listening to the homily of Father Zvonimir, and then I thought, what is it that I could say after him? Because he said everything. The Lord gave us rules. These rules were given to us in God's commandments and in Beatitudes. However, all of us, starting with myself and then everyone else, we're trying to find some kind of way that is going to be a little bit parallel or a little bit curvy, and we would go a little bit into what the Lord gave us. But okay, sometimes we would go outside of that, and I would be able to be happy. The whole problem is that the Lord gave us freedom. If the Lord didn't give us freedom, if the Lord was directing us, we would be here in heaven. But the Lord gave us freedom because He wants us to be developed. He wants us to grow in temptations, and He wants us to follow His guidelines. When I was a young person during the high school, I had the idea that in my life I only want to be engaged with something where I would be able to help the youth of being happy. Back then I didn't even think where I got that. This is something that I got because I really wasn't a happy young person. And yet I wouldn't acknowledge that to myself. Everyone around me thought that I'm too happy. I was very successful. I had good parents. My parents loved me. My parents took care of me. I had good friends, but I wasn't happy. And I wasn't fulfilled, not as a faithful, not as a religious person. Exactly because of my arrogance of being better than the others. Nobody would ever come for psychotherapy if they were absolutely humble. Then, following my idea of helping the youth being happy, I graduated medicine. Then I specialized regarding young people, and none of that was enough for me. And then I started to be engaged as a psychotherapist, so I would help them. And then I discovered that I helped myself the most. Myself, who didn't know how to make myself happy with the other people, because constantly I was waiting for them to give me happiness. That is why anxiety is present in this world. The fact that we wait all the time for something instead of producing something ourselves. So, when this entire circle was made, I realized that everything that I learned, how to help, how to remain healthy, how to help ourselves to be happy, that all of that is in 10 Commandments and in the Beatitudes. Yet, I needed to convince myself. I'm very persistent. This is my strong virtue. My son would say, if you were smart as much as you were persistent, the whole world is yours. But I don't need the whole world. I need butterfly here. And everything that I passed, it doesn't mean that I develop this atmosphere. But I remember that I produced that myself and that I can annul that myself. And this is a great power that the Lord gave us, that we may be those who produce our own happiness. And as such, to be in the life with those that we have chosen in our family, professional part of life. This is truly the power in which very few people believe. Because if we would truly believe that along with everyone and in all of the circumstances of this life, We even had war in this region. In all of the circumstances of the life, we can produce more peace in our day. We ourselves would start living heaven on earth. Very often, my clients say to me, but this one next to me, he doesn't deserve that it is good for him. Why would I be producing and why would I be sharing that love and peace around me if all of these people are against me? Why would I make their life more beautiful? And I deserve that they make my life more beautiful. You need to do that because this is the only thing that it is possible for our brain. For our brain, it is only possible that it shares, that it spreads. It is possible that it takes something from what is offered to it. But always there is a greater possibility and greater safety that I can produce rather than I would have something to take from. And this is the only way of coming out from the fear, of coming out from the anxiety. Because with the help of God, to produce good for ourselves, and in that way, being good to be the offer for the others. Because when somebody says, does the one next to me deserve this? Then I ask, do you deserve this? If it is a rule, a strict rule, mathematics rule, that it cannot be the other way, that this is the only way for your peace and for your happiness, that you spread love, that you share love when it is not possible to be differently, because the Lord intended, imagined man to be like that. How long do you plan to struggle and fight with you? I, who am present here for decades, I fought and struggled with myself, and I am not afraid to acknowledge that even today I have the parts of the day when I fight and struggle with myself, because it is very demanding completely to arrange myself and oneself, because old Asja did not die, old Asja has been pushed behind. And if I become relaxed a little bit, old Asja will come back, and this is actually what is bad. What is evil, this is actually what tempts me. And in every moment I decide, whom shall I come to? And in every moment we need to ask ourselves, what would Jesus do now? What would Mary do now? Those are the only right decisions. Young people, it is very demanding to be a parent. I congratulate parents today. I struggled a lot with my children. And we were beautiful children. They were beautiful. And I was an arrogant mom, and they needed to be more better. That is why I struggled. But I congratulate parents today because there are too many challenges. They convince young people, but even older people, how there is a great number who, from morning to the evening, they live in beautiful life and everything falls before them. And that is Satan's temptation. Because such people don't exist. False depictions of life that people are giving on internet. And then anxiety grow even more because they say, look at how it is good for the great number of people. Their lives are not good and everything is very bad with me. Everything is boring with me. Doesn't make any sense. This life doesn't make any sense if I'm not like those influencers, or God knows how everyone calls them. But this is not the truth. everyone takes his life, and everyone can make his life along with God's help, according to God's rules. They can arrange their lives in a way of having peace in their hearts. Peace in one's heart is always related with humility. Peace in one's heart means that I decided to share love. Who can forbid me today of loving every single person in this world? Yes, I agree that people who completely act opposite to our ideas, it is very challenging to love these people. But if this is the only way to my peace, then it is worth trying and having efforts in every single person to find the elements that I can love. Because I myself am not perfect. I myself have the elements of behavior and the parts of my personality that I don't like, or my loved ones cannot like that. But the question is, what is it that I see when I look at other person? Do I see parts of that person that I find easy to love, or I look at the parts that I'm not able to love? This means my coming here had only one idea. And the idea was that as someone who learned so much about the functioning of the human brain, about how to be happy, that I may say to you that all of these decades and all of these thousands of pages that I've read, all of these exercises, all of these experiences of my own and of the other people's lives, there is nothing wise outside 10 commandments and outside beatitudes. Absolutely. It doesn't exist. You will not find the other path of obtaining peace apart from that. There is an American psychiatrist who produced reality therapy. He claimed that he was atheist. He's now late priest, and I have chosen that therapy because it seemed to me as the most appropriate and closest to the Catholic faith. And all those who have entered this, they realized that it is completely close to the Catholic faith. And I think today that he was arrogant enough and he didn't want to acknowledge that, because otherwise they would tell him, what is it that you have invented? You have just stolen from what Jesus Christ spoke about, because there is no other path. If from this spiritual retreat in our Medjugorje, if we leave the spiritual retreat just with the idea that when I'm not okay, I ask myself, what is it that's behind this idea of not being well? What is it that I would want to be good, and whether my desire is connected to the other people or just to myself? If my idea of good is related to the behavior of the other person, then I'm at a very, very difficult area of falling into fear and falling in depression, because I never know what is the purpose for that other person and whether that other person would give me what I need. If I want something for myself that is outside my own capacities, I was a great expert for such desires. And even today I get lost a little bit because I overload my day. And my husband would always say, in your little hand, you cannot have some kind of great and quality brain, so you need to coordinate with that. But I thought that it is possible, and I was trying to break the boundaries, and very often I would get sick. Every illness actually is related to the loss of inner balance and related to the loss of peace, because if I develop frustration for a long time and if I don't do anything to resolve that frustration, then my brain would start various creations of various illnesses, and these illnesses can be psychological nature, of mental nature. And these illnesses can be of the physical nature. And so I would dare to say that all of the illnesses of this world before had some sort of long frustration that more or less we have been bringing into our consciousness. We should start really from this day, and we should bring in our mind, who are we in this day? Whether what I am doing is the best for me, whether I would be a good company to my loved ones and to all other people that I encounter in this day. And let us conclude that it is very, very important is to look at ourselves, not to be afraid of what we are going to discover there, because everything is possible, everything can be fixed. Everything we have experienced from the birth up to this day, everything that we consider to be some sort of injustice, some sort of suffering, some sort of fault of other people or our own mistake, all of this in that very moment is and needed to be done for something if we have learned the lesson of our lives and if we have grown in that perception, then this has become the lottery. And out of all of the so-called losses of our lives, today you can turn that into gain in a way of that you say, all these people have done only that they could and only what made sense for them in that very moment. I always did something that in that very moment seemed to be most useful for myself and most appropriate for myself. And it is easy to be captain after the battle, general after the battle. Don't be that in a way that you mourn for something in the past. Be general, captain in today's battle of your life. Today, take the harbor in your hands. Very often invoke the Lord and invoke the Holy Spirit so they would show you the path. And today, produce and create your own happiness. And then distribute that to the others so they, along with you, would be happier. And then you, along with them, you would be happy. So this is something that I wanted to share with you. And I wanted to do that only for one reason. That perhaps you may find a quicker path than my path was. For decades, I struggled and fought with myself a lot. And today, I would want people that I encounter, even when I have the opportunity to speak to them, that these people try from my sincere experience how to learn that it is necessary to leave all of the paths behind except the path that Jesus offered us. And then there won't be any room for the anxiety, there won't be any room for the fear, and we shouldn't be thinking much in advance because we don't have any idea. We don't have any idea, and when we think quite a lot in advance, then we say, what if this turns to be this way or that way? We were given this day, we were given 29th of July, in 2023, and if we reflect on tomorrow, then we didn't live the only day that the Lord gave us, which is this day. And tomorrow, when we happen to be in tomorrow, then we again have the task only for that July 30th to live, to make it more beautiful for ourselves with our own steps with Jesus, and to offer ourselves the way we are to people around ourselves. Thank you. Thank you for the sun. Thank you those who are in the shade. I know that these are not some wise words that you haven't heard up to this point. But sometimes after I hear something and after I listen to something, and even for hundreds of times, there is a certain moment of enlightenment that happens, that really enters my heart. Because if it just remains on the cognitive level, nothing will happen. But if we relate that to our experience, and as we heard last night in the gospel, the word falls on the fertile ground and the word falls in my heart, then I am the master. I am the one who develops it, and I make miracles out of that word. Otherwise, nobody would be able to fix you, to make you happy. Nobody would be able to make your life more beautiful. It is only you yourself, by using all of the offers that come with the base of Jesus, foundation of Jesus. Thank you.